Hello and welcome to a fresh edition of this week's Weekly Wind-Up. I'm Kyle Warwick and on this week's show I'm joined by Weekly Wind-Up regulars Pastor Carlton Napier and Councillor David Ridgway. And also joining us on this week's programme is the Council's Chief Librarian, Carol Stump. Welcome to the show, Carol.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thanks.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perhaps we could start the show by you giving us a brief idea of what your role entails, Carol.
Yes, as you said, I'm the Chief Librarian, so that involves me managing the staff and the services for 26 library and information centres across Kirklees. That includes the Tourist Information Centre at Holfirth as well. So we have both rural and urban libraries, obviously the biggest at Huddersfield and Dewsbury. We have many different sorts of library and information centres. So for instance at Rawthorpe Dalton, we're co-located with the Children's Centre. Also at the Greenwood Centre in Ravensthorpe, we're co-located there. So we deliver services on behalf of the council. That could be about providing council information as well as your traditional library services.
Right. I believe we're sort of coming up to the end of a 12-month period where the council said that there was budgeted for libraries and that we wouldn't see any library closures. Does this mean that we might be seeing some library closures in the near future?
Well, at the moment I've got a budget for the years 14-15, so that's the next year from April onwards. I've got the same budget to deliver the same service. So I think what we need to be aware of is that it's not just the library service that are going to have to look at their budget shrinking, and so we do need to look at different ways of delivering the service. Now we hope to avoid as many closures as we can, because what we're trying to do over the next year is look at how we can involve the community or what different methods of delivering our library service we can provide. And what we're trying to do is to reduce the number of closures needed.
Absolutely. So is there a plan for keeping libraries sustainable?
There is, and some of the things that are happening at the moment are we're working with communities. So in different communities, different things are happening. In Councillor Ridgway's ward, for instance, at Slathwaite, we're looking at moving the library into the Slathwaite Town Hall. So that's a possibility there, because that will obviously save on revenue, a capital budget with the where we are at the moment, but also we may be able to, by working in the town hall with other partners, we may be able to reduce the revenue budget as well. So at Slathwaite, that's something we're looking at. At Denbydale, we're working very closely with the community, and they're working towards actually taking on the library service for us. So for the next 3 years, they'll be supported with library staff and with books and IT provision, and we will work with them towards them having a greater role in delivering the library service. Again, that's about them helping us to sustain the service in that area. In Kirkeaton, we've got volunteers who are already helping with staffing. They're running events for us, coffee mornings, all the kind of traditional things that go on in the library. The community are getting more and more involved with, and that's what we're trying to do throughout the Kirklees Library Service. We've got quite a good friends of groups getting established, so quite a good network of friends of groups. For instance, at Honley, they've just raised money to buy some movable shelving, which means that the shelves can be moved out of the way for more community events. So all these things are happening already in order for us to look at sustaining the library service within a reduced budget, because we do know that our budget is going to shrink in the future.
Absolutely. So is this something you're involved in, Councillor Ridgway, in Slathwaite?
Well, I have to admit that we had a meeting arranged to see the facility at the town hall, and this meeting had been exceedingly difficult to set up because not all three of us could be available on the same day, and so on and so forth, all three councillors and so on and so forth, and then Carol couldn't be available on a certain day, and finally a day and a time was arranged. I think it took us 6 weeks to get to that point, and I forgot to go. But yeah, life is as life is. But I know the town hall well. I know the space that they want to put the library into, and I'm really quite keen to see the library move from its current location to the town hall for two specific reasons. Firstly, I think its current location is dangerous on the basis that there's roads to cross without any great assistance to the pedestrians, and the building is prone to leaky roofs. So it's not the best building in the world anymore, sadly. But in the town hall, there's plenty of parking in the near vicinity. The town hall is used for a multitude of different things, therefore the viability of the service is likely to be sustained into the future, and I think it's just a good thing all round.
Mm-hmm.
So am I involved? Yeah, except for not going to meetings, yes I am.
Is there anything that libraries are working towards to sort of adapt to a digital age?
Yes, certainly. We are, excitingly actually at the moment, we are talking to companies who provide e-books, and we are just about ready to sign a contract or look to sign a contract for delivering e-books to the people of Kirklees through our library service. We already deliver audio books through e-digital means, so this is just building up on that service. And so for those of you who traditionally know about e-books and have got a Kindle or an iPad, we will be offering a lending service, a lending e-book service, which will be free at point of delivery to the people of Kirklees.
So will people still have to go into their library to access that,
No.
or will that be online?
They'll be able to do it remotely.
Right.
They'll also, because not everybody in Kirklees can afford internet access or Kindles or e-books, they will also be able to download in the library and use for a period of time an e-book. So if you haven't got the hardware and the software to do that, then you can do that free of charge. You will be able to do it free of charge in the local library as well.
Right.
And it's very simple to use.
You know that yourself, do you, David?
Oh yeah, it's very simple to use. There has been a generational differential between the use of IT and the massive explosion in facilities, and I think there's been my generation has been a bit reluctant to get involved, but this stuff is just dead easy to use. In fact, it's almost easier than turning the page.
There might be some people who might worry that e-books could come to replace hard copies of books. Is this something that...
It's a much talked about subject, and actually we still have a healthy book loan. We still have people who want to borrow the hard copy, and of course there are still lots of people who use the library for research. So people prefer to go into a reference library or to go into the library in the reference section and look up the information that they want through. But there will not be in the next few years a massive reduction in the number of books that people want to borrow. People still do like to read a book.
I certainly hope so, because fundamentally, a lot of people just think the library is a place you just go and chill and read. There's a whole range of activities, and the care of books is something that is very prominent, not only with adults, but children really need to out of focus and to read properly from a book. And I hope, as an advocate of the library services, I grew up on the library service, and I am one of those on the campaign of keeping the libraries open. And I hope that this country and our local politicians will back the library services and back people that we have as our chief librarian here to keep the good work going.
Absolutely. Just as a final question to yourself, Pastor Napier, you were sort of talking about the effect that libraries had on you when you were younger. Do you think there'd be a big effect for rural communities if these library services were...
I do believe so. There's always this divide with the urban and the rural, and I think very often we are forgetting that not everybody wants to be in the urbanized community, and those services need to be provided outside there for people. And I agree with David, everything is cost effective. But that goes along for everything. We close down hospitals, we close down telephone boxes, etc. There is a closure because of the need. And I strongly believe, and still an advocate of it, that people who choose to live outside of the urban community need to have these facilities at their doorstep. If not, we're not saying you should have everyone, the library service at every corner, but at least there should be an access point where everybody can reach the services, whether you're inside the city or outside of it.
Absolutely. And just to confirm, there is money in the budget, so you don't, your hope is to maintain as many libraries as possible going into the future.
Yes, there's money in the budget, for next year, but it's about maintaining the service by looking at different methods of delivery. So it's not necessarily about maintaining 26 buildings,
That's right.
because buildings are very expensive.
Correct.
And I think what we have to get away from is the library service doesn't necessarily have to be delivered from a building.
No.
So we've got some very skilled librarians who already work out in the community, work in schools, work in community venues to deliver our traditional library services, whether it's story time, storytelling or whatever it is. So we can still provide a library service without the big budget that we've got at the moment, and that's about us looking at different ways of doing it.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. But the debate doesn't have to stop here. We want to know what you think. Does the library provide an important service for yourselves, or do you feel it's a cost that the council can look at trimming? You can contact us and let us know your feelings by email info@kirkleeslocaltv.com and on Twitter by searching @KirkleesLocalTV. Thank you. Join us after the break. Welcome back to KLTV's Weekly Wind-Up. Now, at least 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem of some sort within their life. And with young people said to be facing an unprecedented level of social pressure, that figure could soon be seen to increase. For some people, the services provided by the council are imperative. Councillor Ridgway, do you see the mental health services provided by the council being affected by budget restraints from central government?
There is no doubt that there will be, no doubt whatsoever. And in fact, I might even take issue with your very first statistic when you say that 1 in 4 will suffer from mental health issues during their lifetime. I think the figure is much, much higher than that. But I think that the reason why the statistic stays at 1 in 4 is that we have coping mechanisms, and when we're having a bad day, we could be actually suffering from depression, but it doesn't get counted statistically, and therefore the coping mechanism that we personally have on that basis kicks in, and we then are able to move forward to the next day. But for some other people, it is massively different to that, and their coping mechanisms are extraordinarily lesser than the ordinary person, than the average person. And that means that they do need support, and they do need society to look at them for their care and their consideration within a much wider society that we have today. And that takes money. And the government is cutting its central grants to local councils. The councils are they are under statute to deliver care in the community, and there is going to be a massive conflict as to how that care is delivered into the future. So the answer to your question is yes.
Right, thank you. On that subject of sort of people entering into care and people maybe having these sort of think that these coping mechanisms, as you say, like women, British women are far more likely to be treated for mental health problems than men. Yet the rates show that men are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than British women. Do you feel there is an issue getting men to engage with mental health services and issues?
Yes, I think it probably is. My wife and I have differences of opinion on this. I'll say, I've not been feeling well for 2 or 3 days. Have you made an appointment to see the doctor? No, I'll be all right. That's a man issue. Men are like that. Do they want to go and see the doctor? No, not really. Strangely, I was at a dinner on Saturday night, and I was sitting next to a person who really believes in homeopathy. When did you last go to the doctor? And she said, oh, I don't go to the doctor anymore. They don't provide the service that I'm looking for. And I was really quite surprised to hear this. But what you say, it comes as no surprise, because the pressure that builds up mentally, and I'm speaking from a purely personal point of view, I've got no knowledge in this, the pressure that builds up, a woman will endeavour to cope with this from my experience, by taking those problems to her local GP and getting the necessary support, then a man will bottle it up, probably both. But when that pressure then becomes so great, then the woman will already be receiving some care, consideration, and will be in a position of being looked after, whereas the man suddenly is faced with absolute dilemmas. Do I go on? Do I stop it? And consequently, I can see that it does follow that the suicide rates are so different. Does that make sense?
It did make sense, yes.
Good.
Yeah, I think it's something little bit of a generalisation.
Well,
And actually, I kind of booked the trend because in our house, I never go to the doctors. I think I take after my father, who never did go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And my husband has had cause to access the doctors quite frequently recently because he's got a slipped disc. But I do think you're right. I think women do tend to talk more about their issues, and they have a network of friends and support, which sometimes men perhaps don't have.
It's been suggested that mental health services fail to take into account particular cultures and needs of British minority groups. Do you feel that the council can do better to engage minority communities on mental health issues? Pastor Napier.
I do believe so. Mental health touches every single generation, every single age group, and every class of people. And ethnic minorities may, in a way, need some more help because of what was just said. These groups are people who sometimes don't want to talk about mental health. And I find personally, coming to live in England, that our white colleagues, our English colleagues are able to talk freely about mental health. They engage with their family members who have become victims of mental health. Whereas, for example, the African Caribbean community I know does not embrace it very well, because once you hear the term mental health, it is almost equivalent to madness, which on this side of the Western world, it's not viewed in that way. As someone who has personally been engaged in the mental health service and actually have been a victim, so to speak, of mental health challenges, I am an advocate of that system as well. And I do believe that men in particular need to talk. Yes, the women will get on the phone, talk to their girlfriend, visit the GP, air their problem. Men tend to, as David says, bottle it up. But we need to run the crusade because there are so many men who are taking their lives now. We just heard of a great notorious actor, Oscar winner, who has just committed suicide. Men need to talk, and if there's anything that we can do in Kirklees to get men to talk about the stress, and the more cuts we have, is the more the mental health figures are going to go up.
I do know that in June last year a scheme was set up for GPs to be able to direct patients with conditions such as depression, phobias and eating disorders to self-help books in their libraries. Is this a scheme that the council endorses, Carol?
Yes, the council does endorse it, and we've actually been running the scheme for longer than this last push, if you like, on books on prescription, because we took part in the first books on prescription scheme, which was a few years ago. So yes, people can access the books through either their GPs or through other health workers, and they're given a list. There's a prescribed list, and people are given a prescription for that certain book, and they can come in and get that book free from the library. So that's a really good scheme, and yes, we've worked with the reading agency on this to make sure people can access it whichever library they go into. They can also get information online about it as well.
Absolutely. Could you maybe give us some information on where people who might be suffering or feeling a bit down, where they can access information on these schemes? Yes,
well, I mean, there is just the walking into a library. Now, I know that can be a barrier for certain people if they haven't done that before. Usually people who are showing signs of some of these illnesses are in contact with the GPs. The health trainers that work in Kirklees know about the services we offer in the library service, so they will promote it. If you're looking to be able to go online, you can get the information there. But you can just walk into one of our service points and get that information.
Brilliant. I think it's just good. One of the symptoms, classic symptoms of depression is isolation. You want to be on your own. And I think the fact that you can extend something to the library where people are going to have to come, it's a real step in the right direction because you want them out, and not because you're having some challenge with your mental health means that you're cutting off reading. So I really would wish you all the best in it and hope it take off in a big way.
Thank you.
Absolutely. It seems to me though that a lot of the services that we've been talking about are quite reactive in the sense that they take somebody recognising the fact that they have a mental health problem for it to then be diagnosed or treated. Do you think there's any way that the council can be more proactive in the way that it approaches mental health?
That's actually a really interesting question for me because we run services on behalf of Gateway to Care. And so somebody might come in because they need a blue badge or they need some alterations to their bathroom or something like that. Or they may even just come in for an ordinary council inquiry. And because the staff get to know people, we quite often, so one question turns into 6 questions. So it might be, oh, you're not with your mum today, or, you know, how's your mum? And then it might be, oh, my mum's gone into care and I'm feeling a bit down, this, that and the other. And so these questions lead on to other things, and our staff are trained and skilled in signposting people to whatever service they need.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, this is obviously an extremely wide-ranging topic that's quite difficult for us to cover even the tip of in the time allotted to us. But we would like everybody or anybody that feels like they want to add anything to the conversation to get in contact with us with their thoughts. Perhaps you're somebody whose service has been affected, or maybe you simply want to comment on something that you've heard today. Either way, you can do so by contacting us by email on info@kirkleeslocaltv.com and on Twitter by searching @KirkleesLocalTV. Please join us after the break for a wind-up of the last week. And welcome back to the final part of this week's show. This week, a burglar in Almondbury was surprised when 2 of his victims, or would-be victims, tackled him with a rolling pin and a frying pan, restraining the offender until the police arrived. The police advise caution to anybody thinking of tackling intruders and always to call the police first. Is this something that you might see yourselves attempting, or...?
Well, it was fascinating to read about that because last week in the national press there was the gentleman whose business has been burgled several times in the last 2 years, and he saw on his CCTV, I think it was, that people that they had intruders. He went down there, armed himself with a length of wood, and broke one of these burglars' legs. Was taken. The burglars each got fined £75 for the burglary, and he was taken to court for assault, and the judge threw it out. So, whereas the police say you should take care doing this, yes, you should. But it seems that the pendulum of the law is beginning to swing back towards the victim rather than the perpetrator, and that's a good thing.
That is definitely a good thing. I think it's time enough we put away that silly idea of us not defending our property. I'm certainly not going to let any burglar stand before me trying to burgle my home and I just try to call the police. I will call them after I've taken action.
I wouldn't want to be sat on by you, but
I'll be right up there with the rolling pin as well.
That's right. And we're not using guns and we're not using knife. A rolling pin and a frying pan, if that can scare them off, by all means use it.
Indeed so.
Indeed. There have been some calls to sell off a small percentage of what has been called Kirklees Council's hidden art treasures. The council own around 3,000 works of art, of which only 15% of that amount is on display. Do you see this as a positive way of the council raising funds, Carol?
I think my colleagues in the art service probably wouldn't see that as being a positive way of raising funds. You know, we've got a really nice and well-used art gallery on top of Huddersfield Library. I think it's about using the art in different ways and encouraging people to access the art, and I know that that's what the art gallery staff are looking at doing. We need to encourage the people who come into the Huddersfield Library building to make their way up to the art gallery.
Yeah, that's good.
We need to get art out into the community, and we need to make it more accessible for people who don't think it's for them, because I think there are a lot of people who particularly don't engage with the arts, and what I would like to see is the Arts Council giving more money to put money into, say, socially deprived areas, so that we could perhaps have a mobile art exhibition. You know, get the art out into the community, get it well used. That's what I'd want to see happen to it.
Instead of selling it, we could rent it.
Absolutely.
Rent it out.
That's right.
Get some of the people who want to buy it to actually borrow it for a fee for a bit of time. That would get some income in. But if you sell it, you can never sell it again. Once it's gone, it's gone.
This is very true. And finally, the past weekend saw the return of the Imbolc Festival in Marsden. The festival celebrates the end of winter and the coming hope and expectancy of spring. Thousands attended the event that featured fireworks, dance performances and the traditional battle between the Green Man of Spring and Jack Frost. This is the sort of festival that the Colne Valley seems to do particularly well, don't you think?
But we do, and I have to say that the people who organise these festivals, Imbolc and the Moonraking Festival and so on and so forth, they are so enthusiastic, and they are seeing their festivals grow year by year. And each has received in the past a certain amount, not a very big amount, of assistance from funding from the local area committees. And that's an excellent way of actually utilising, in my view, public funds so that we can get these festivals up and running and bringing people into our localities. I have to say that the other side of the coin, it makes you wonder whether all the festival money has all got to be concentrated on the festival night in Huddersfield Town Centre, because it just doesn't sort of gel with all the people who are living out in the rural communities. And as these cuts come in, these general cuts come in from the council's got to contend with, the rural communities are the ones which are the easiest to be got at by the council because they're so far away. So all part of the elbow of the guys who organise Imbolc, all part of their elbow to get more people in. It is a massive tourist attraction. It's a fantastic event, and it really is a lot of good fun. But I just must tell you as well, Sheffield United did beat Fulham last night 1-0 in the cup.
Whether we keep that in or not is open to debate. Well, that's all for this week. Thank you to our guests. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Again, you can contact us with any of your views by email, info@kirkleeslocaltv.com, and on Twitter @KirkleesLocalTV. Please join us next week. Thank you and goodbye.